beautiful McLaren Vale in a winter's morning, and we're preparing to take cuttings for field grafting for later this spring. So I'm just going to go through a few points which are important to consider before you start pruning your budwood for grafting. The first point I'd like to make is you need to make sure that the variety and the clone that you're after are correct in the vineyard. In older blocks, sometimes this isn't recorded, and also there can be rogue vines in vineyards of different varieties. So you need to make sure you're actually cutting the variety and the clone that you want. So if you can make sure that that's correct, that's a great place to start. Point number 2 is to make sure you understand the virus status of the vines that you're taking the cuttings from. Virus can interrupt grafting quite severely and cause low strike rates and potentially problems with the fruit later on. So it's really important to make sure that you have an understanding about whether there is virus in the vineyard that you're sourcing the cuttings from. We do that in 2 ways. Firstly, we can do a visual inspection during the growing season. Some virus symptoms, such as grapevine GVA virus, can show symptoms during spring in the growing season. This is really obvious in varieties, particularly Chardonnay, which are quite prone to it. The other virus, which is more obvious later in the season, so you look at the season before for this symptom, is leaf roll virus. And the leaf roll viruses will display very distinct discoloration in the leaves, and you can detect those post-harvest in the vineyard just prior to leaf fall. You'll see odd vines usually within a block. It's important that if you have to source budwood from those vineyards, that you tag the vines that you know have visual symptoms, and also take samples of those vines and send them off for testing with pathology. Even if you have a healthy vineyard, it's important to understand if virus is there. You may not be able to detect it. So take samples and send them off to pathology, and then wait for the report from the virologist with those samples results, and also consult with the grafting contractor prior to taking wholesale cuttings from a vineyard for budwood. The third important consideration when sourcing budwood for field grafting is to understand what diseases have occurred in that vineyard and whether the budwood may still be carrying spores from previous disease infections. The most significant one which can affect growth in grafts is powdery mildew damage, which is pretty obvious from looking at the canes, where you'll see the dark blotches from the previous powdery mildew infection last season. The problem with powdery mildew with grafts is that it can actually stunt the grafted shoots and lead to an infection early on when the shoots are green, which means that they will have growth that's not significant and may even potentially kill the green grafted shoot. Another problem which we can encounter is if people don't understand what phomopsis looks like. So if you need to take cuttings yourself, make sure you understand what phomopsis looks like. You'll see the black spores and sometimes purple spores damage on canes in spring. It's wise not to take cuttings for grafting from phomopsis infected canes. And last of all, if you have potentially bud mite lurking in the vineyard and you have seen some low fruitfulness as a result of this, just be careful. If you can avoid taking cuttings from bud mite infected vineyards, that's also another good strategy to ensure you get the best possible quality budwood for your grafting job.